Hi, everyone, and welcome to our monthly health and wellness webinar. We have Urooj here today, one of our registered dietitians here at Providence St. John, who's going to be talking to us about the summer harvest foods. Please take it away.
Hi, everybody. My name is Urooj. I'm a registered dietitian. I may have worked with some of you, or may work with some of you in the future. But the topic for today is going to be, it has to do with the summer harvest. So I made it into making the most out of the seasonal produce. I'm just gonna skip ahead a little bit, and that's me right here. And this is our presentation today. Any questions or concerns that you may have, please ask me at the end of the presentation and I'll welcome them. And so without further ado, let's get into the presentation for today. So keeping that in mind, talking about the season fruits, right? Produce, right? What are some of the objectives that are going to be covered in the presentation today? So we're going to be talking about season produce, what it is and why. We're going to learn about some relationship or connection between seasonal versus local. And then when we're talking about seasonal and we're talking about produce, we also like the local farmers also come in mind. So we're going to be talking about what are some ways to support them. Okay, so why seasonal, or what is seasonal produce? So seasonal food basically means food that is purchased and consumed around the time it is harvested, right? And I think being in the summer is like a prime example when we talk about all those delicious summer fruits, right? Think about the peaches, think about the mangoes, all those stone fruits, the berries and stuff. So typically speaking, they're harvested now and they are given to us. That's why they're more delicious, because they're in season. So typically speaking, when we're buying food items that are in season, they tend to be more fresher, they are more nutritious, and then they tend to taste really good too, right? Because they're picked at their ripeness. One second. Okay. Even though there are like certain fruits or produce or vegetables that are offered all year long, but the best time to eat them is when they are directly purchased from a local grower, so in season. The reason that they tend to be more fresher is because they do not require as long of a transport time. Typically speaking, if you're getting something from, let's say, like a couple of hours away from here, they're going to be delivered to you faster. So that cuts it. They appear and they look and they taste fresh. And then also, unlike if you're buying the seasonal produce out of the season, they are distributed to your local store quicker. Crops are picked at the peak of their ripeness. They taste better and they taste full. And then there are some studies where fruits and vegetables contain more nutrients too when they're allowed to ripen on their parent plant, as opposed to buying something out of the season. When we talk about season, oftentimes we talk about, okay, seasonal, right? Local comes to our mind. So why buy food items locally? So purchasing the fruits or the vegetables locally helps support the farmers. It helps maintain our farmland. And it also opens the space for the community, right? And then it also helps boost our local economy. So think about the money that you're spending on your products from a local farmers. The growers or the farmers are staying in the community, right? They're reinvesting it into our local businesses. For example, you buy food locally, you process them locally, you are distributing it locally. Think about the restaurants where they're sending it out to. So that helps generate jobs, and it also helps stimulate the local economy. And it's also a way to connect with your local growers. So, you're going to the farmers market, for example, you talk to them, you learn about their practices, you get some tips from them. And then in a way, when you bring that produce home, you just feel more connected. And in a way, it might help or encourage you to produce some of your own fruits or vegetables in your homes or in your gardens by getting the tips from the farmers. And then when we talk about local, we covered farmers. One of the other benefits that you can get your produce more organic, right? A lot of time people would ask me, what is the difference between organic and inorganic, right? So organic has to do a lot more with the practices that the farmers use, right? Some of the goals of the organic farming is that it helps improve the soil, and the water quality. It cuts the pollution down, and it is safe for the livestock, right? So think about the cows and chickens and stuff. It enables natural farm animal behavior, and it also helps promote a self-sustaining cycle of resources on our farm if the farmers are using organic methods. The items that are not used in organic farming is going to be artificial or synthetic fertilizers to add to our soils. They don't use as much sewage as a fertilizer. They're not using synthetic pesticides or chemicals. They're not using radiation to preserve food. They're not using any type of genetic modifications or genetic engineering to help grow the crop faster, to improve the diseases and stuff. And they're not using antibiotics or growth hormones when it comes to livestock. So beef or chicken, for example, right? So when all of those things are taken out of the equation, that items or food or produce becomes organic. If they are using any of those methods, the food automatically it's called inorganic item. Okay. So this seems to have like a good benefits, right? The ones that I mentioned, not having pesticides, not having growth hormones or antibiotics and stuff. Those are all the pros. What are some of the cons associated with organic, right? It then typically have to do with the price. It's the cost. In order for the farmers to do all of those things, the crop can have like some type of insects or insect on them. So the crop goes bad, or the animal, for example, can have diseases with it and they can die and stuff. So, or they're not producing items at much faster pace. All of those things have to do with the cost, right? So they have to bring the cost up for the farming practices, basically. But when it comes down to when you're selecting your produce, right, is organic versus inorganic? What is more nutritious, if it's safer or not? So I can't give people like a direct answer, right? What I can say in terms of the nutrients, so think about like multivitamin or vitamins and minerals, thinking about the carbohydrate, to protein, to fat. Typically the produce does not have fat, but if you're talking about the macro and the micronutrients, they tend to be the same. If not, organic has a slightly bit much bigger or has a slight increase in the nutrients. There's like a small study that has shown that small to moderate increase in some nutrients in organic products. But they tend to have in terms of the antioxidant properties, organic tends to have more. It tends to have more flavonoids, which are the antioxidant properties. When it comes to toxic metals, one of them is called cadmium. Hopefully I'm pronouncing it properly. It's one of the toxic chemical, and it's found in the soils and it's absorbed by the plants. It tends to be lower in grains, but not so much in fruits and vegetables. So whether you buy inorganic or organic, this type of toxic metals is about the same. When it comes to pesticides, it's much smaller level, right? And then the safety rules for the highest level of residue allowed on the conventional produce have also changed. So hopefully, like even inorganic practices are not using as much pesticides, but it's still there. Sometimes it also has to do with the airborne pesticides. So I can't guarantee, or no one can guarantee, that the organic item will not have any pesticide, because if there are like farms nearby and there's a farmer or farm using inorganic or have inorganic practices, the pesticide can travel in the air and can land on the organic produce too, but it's much smaller and much less. And then in terms of the bacteria, so this is where we're talking about like the meats or the chickens and stuff, right? Because there are the meats produced usually using the conventional or the inorganic method may have higher amounts of dangerous types of bacteria that they were not able to treat with the antibiotics. So the overall risk of the contamination on the livestock is much bigger. But we don't have to worry about the bacteria, typically speaking, when it comes to produce. For example, if the bacteria on the fruit has more to do with if the soil or something had some type of bacteria on it. You can't really treat it. They don't use antibiotics on there. And if, for example, there's like an outburst or that we know that there's like some type of a disease associated with, for example, lettuce or like a spinach, for example, I think a couple of years ago or even like recently, There was a case of like a salmonella or an E. coli associated with the, I think it's either lettuce or spinach. They couldn't have treated it. It's just that they have to get rid of the crop altogether, but they can't. It didn't matter if the produce was organic or inorganic. The feed itself or the crop itself had that type of bacteria that they had to get rid of. Hopefully that made sense. Yeah. Alrighty. So what can you do, right? I'll be honest, like it's not always feasible for me to buy things organic because of the cost of it. The idea is that you don't have to buy everything organic or inorganic. Get the variety, right? Try to shop from different places, different stores, different farmers and stuff, so that you have a variety of food mix from the mixed sources. You can buy food and vegetables that are in season. Read the nutrition or the food labels carefully, but even if food item says it's organic, it does not mean that it's healthy, right? They're not talking about what is in it. Does it have a lot of like salt, the sugars, or the calories or something? So that has to do more with the packaging, food packaging itself. When it talks about like when we're talking about the produce, they tend to have like less amount of them. But organic does not always mean healthy, is what I was like trying to show. And then at the same time, like make sure that you're washing and like scrubbing your produce properly to get rid of as much contaminants from there as possible. Okay. If I had a piece of advice, and many of you may have heard of this, called Dirty Dozen, right? So these are the items that tends to, even if if they are made in an inorganic or conventional way, they're going to have a lot of pesticides or chemicals on them. Because you're not removing any type of the layer or the peel, you're not peeling them off, you're eating the fruit as is or the produce as is. For example, greens, the berries and stuff, we eat them as is. So if there's any type of pesticide on there, we're also consuming them. So if you can buy these items, considered Dirty Dozen in organic, that would be the best way to go about it. And then there's another list of like Clean 15. So these are the things that you are peeling the skin off of it, and they're not absorbing as many pesticides and such. So these are the items that you can buy inorganically as well, and should be fine, right? Think about the watermelon, how thick the covering is, so you're not absorbing it as much of pesticides in there, in the plant. Okay, so these are the options. This is what we can do. Okay, so now we come down to like, what are some of our options? Where can we get these type of produce and such, right? So the first one that comes to my mind is the farmer's market. And being in this area, working in the Santa Monica area, we have a farmer's market offered twice a week. Saturdays and Wednesdays. Wednesdays ones are the bigger one. They tend to have a lot more of vendors there. So that's like one way of buying locally. And we know, we could be sure that for the most part, those items are organic, unless it's not advertised there that they're organic. Most of the vendors are advertising that they are organic, and they tend to be organic. Okay, so that's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is, I don't know if any of you have heard of this. It's called CSA, or Community Supported Agriculture. I got to learn about them when I was like sort of like researching for this topic too. So the idea is that, so they have like different websites that you can go on. Some of them are they are located locally, like Santa Monica, Mar Vista, this type of area. The one called Good Life Organics. So what you basically have to do is pay a cost upfront to this organization. What they will do is, whenever the feed is harvested or the produce is harvested, they will put them in a box, and then you have like a predetermined time and date where you go and pick up your produce or your fruits and vegetables. So that's one way of doing it. What the reason you pay upfront is to help support the farmers, and it helps keep them have the customer base going on, basically. So that's one way of doing it. You can go on their website, you can check them out, and they have like different sizes, they have different price available. So similar to that CSA, there's another one in Malibu called Saddle Rock Garden. It's a similar idea. Or you can look into like there's an app for it as well called Grown By right here. When I was doing a research for like the LA based area, Grown By wasn't as available, meaning so this app is run by the farmers. Most of the farmers are like further away from the LA land. So I saw some in the near San Diego, and then there were some in the Northern California. So there wasn't a lot available in the 1 to 2 hour radius of LA. So it might be not be like most feasible for the people in LA area, but that's something that my family's from Chicago, so I was just like trying to research like, are there grown by farmers or CSA programs there? And they had some. So if you have like something that you want to like advertise or share with your family or friends, that would be a way to go as well. And then the other way of like buying or other options of local is like buying locally. Like think about the local grocery stores. Think about the Whole Foods or like the Sprouts market. So they tend to have like organic items too, and they do, at least on their website, they mentioned that they also support local farmers. Otherwise, like speaking with the manager to know, hey, do you have anything from like organically or not organically, anything grown locally, and they can let you know of that as well. Or look into like a local co-opportunity market. I know we are lucky enough to have something for us on Broadway. I think it's like the 17th or 16th Street there. Okay. Alrighty. So what are some of the cons and pros of farmers market, right? Let's get the negative or the cons out of the way first. It could be expensive, right? It's not as widely available as grocery store, and it's not as readily accessible. What I mean by that is, let's, for example, I plan on making something for dinner, and I'm working, right? If I get off at 5 p.m. and I cannot go to the farmer's market, right? And I'm forced to go to a grocery store. So that's what I meant by the farmer's market. They're not as readily available. It's something that they offer a couple times a month or a couple times a week, depending on where you're located. Some of the pros of having a farmer's market is that, again, it's organic. They're serving the community. Your food items are not coming from far. They are locally based. You're supporting the farmer so that they continue to grow, harvest more for the community. It's more sustainable. And the other con is that you plan ahead, right? So for example, if I'm going to farmer's market on Saturday, I'm sort of like planning ahead. I'm planning ahead what I'm going to be making for the rest of the week, right? So it saves you time, hopefully, in a way, so that you have an idea. You're not spending too much time. Okay, what am I going to have for dinner tonight? That's like one of the pros of going to farmer's market. And if you're curious, I know it's a little small, but a farmer's market is offered literally every day of the week, depending on where you are and how far you're willing to travel. So as you can see, and if you would like, you can take a picture of this. So there's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday in green, basically Thursday, Friday, different places. So I know I mentioned like Santa Monica one. So on Wednesdays, you can see like, go back. Santa Monica one is like we mentioned right here. And I know they're also available on Saturdays. But along with that, there are more in the area too. So I know in this area we have Santa Monica is here again. I think I saw something for Sunday, like Beverly Hills area. I saw Brentwood. So these are like the neighboring communities that you can also go and check out. Or you can go on the local website for the city and see when the farmers markets are available. Okay, and then just remember, even if you're not going to the farmers market, try to still get the produce of the season, even if you're shopping at Ralph, for example. They have organic options. You don't have to get them, but think about eating the fruits in the season. And then some people may ask me like, so how do I know what foods are in season? This is something that I need to get more educated. I know about my summer fruits because I love them, but there are other things that I'm not too familiar with. So this is like one of the websites that I wanted to show you guys. The good thing is like it's literally each region, each state has their own and what is grown in that state and where you're coming from. I know like for the avocados, for example, so when I was searching into this, I clicked on randomly, right? I clicked on avocados. I know this is something that's available in Southern California and it's literally available year long. So which was nice for me to know, for me to learn. If you just want to know what's grown in late August, as I was doing this research earlier, this is like the common list. So I know as we're approaching like, fall season, apples are going to be coming up, basil, a lot of different types of berries. These are the different vegetables and stuff. So it's a good way to just know what's in season and you can buy these items there. And it's a good handy dandy tool. And it's not just talking about California, it's talking about literally the whole country. So that's one guide. I will highly recommend you guys check it out. It's pretty cool. And then I just have like a table here 4 like common, if you want to take a picture of this, what's available, when, what time of the month. So this one talks about the fruits, and then the next slide talks about the vegetables and when they're in season. And then going along, so for example, you went to farmer's market, right? And you bought a lot of produce, and you're just wondering, okay, now what do I do with that? So there are different ways of preserving it, right? I'm not very well versed into that, but some of you might be. So there's a way. I think the only thing that I can do myself is freezing. That's pretty easy, and I often freeze my produce. When it comes to this is the most easiest and the most convenient way of preserving your fresh produce. When it comes to fruits, you simply want to wash them if it requires washing. You cut them into pieces, and then you put them in a airtight Ziploc bag or freezer bag. When it comes to vegetables, there's an additional step. You have to obviously wash it out and stuff, but you have to also blanch it. Blanching basically means you quickly give it a quick heat for a minute, and then you take the produce out and you put it into a quick cold water bath. And then once it's cooled down, you can like freeze it. So that's the freezing method. The different other methods are going to be drying. For this one, you need some type of a utensil. Drying basically means to remove upwards of like 80 to 90% of the moisture from the item, the fruits or the vegetables. The canning is another method that requires a little bit of a practice, I would say. But again, I'm sure you guys will be able to find some of the ways, techniques, or the recipes of either canning, jamming, or pickling. The matter of fact, like I was talking to one of my colleagues. We actually went to school together, and I stay in touch with them. One of her coworker gave her some pickles, and she was like, "Okay, what do I do with that?" So she literally just found something. She was talking to us in a group setting. One of my other friends' grandmother is so into pickling, so she gave her some of the advices and some techniques on how to pickle her. I think she had a lot of cucumbers that she just wanted to pickle, so that was a way to do it. But I'm sure if you can find something online. If not, let me know, and I can get back to you and share some tips and recipes and such with that. Okay. So what are some of the cost-conscious tips for making most out of the seasonal produce, right? We want to keep the money factor in mind too. The idea is, again, just become more familiar with what's in season. When items are in season, they tend to be cheaper too, especially like towards the end of the season when they're trying to like, okay, it's going out of season. We want to reduce the price and stuff. Okay, you can still buy them. They may not taste as much, but still you're getting it. You're saving money that way, and you can buy them organic too. It helps to have like a plan for what you're going to be eating, producing, what you want to produce or not produce, what you want to make when. Maybe have like a plan for a week. If you want to make something special, think about it when you're going to be making that, so you can buy beforehand those items. Try to like store your fruits and vegetables with care. Try to label them so they don't go bad very quickly. Store them in the fridge if it requires to be in the fridge right away, right? So that prolongs the shelf life of the produce. And then I just want to share, as we're coming towards the end, I just want to share a cookbook that talks about like different recipes when it comes to cooking vegetables. I found this on Amazon, so you guys can check it out too if needed. And then there's another resource that I want to show you. It's very similar to seasonal produce, but this one also talks about or give you more of a guideline. And it's called Real Food Encyclopedia. So it gives you guidelines on how to handle, how to care for it, how to store it, and like some recipes and stuff. So it's very similar, but slightly different. So you guys can check that out too. And then that brings us to the end of our session. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to take them. But before you do that, I just want to show you that along with talking about the seasonal produce, I'm also hosting a Whole Foods grocery store tour in about 2 weeks. It's on Tuesday, August 29th from 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. And we do require that you please RSVP before. Just call this number. We'll ask you for a little like your name and your contact information. That's all we need from you to register. We do have limited spots, so hurry in. Thank you.
I know I have a question real quick. When you mentioned blanching vegetables, I
Yeah.
guess number one, what is the reason that like some produce needs to be blanched in order to freeze it? And number two, how do you tell? I know a lot of like vegetables are secretly fruits and some
Right.
fruits are secretly vegetables. So
Right.
which ones are which when it comes to freezing?
So let me answer the second part of your question first. So the question is basically, how do you know how much to blanch and what is blanch and what is the reason for blanching some of the vegetables? Good question. Um, Sorry, I'll answer the first part of the question.
No, no
So
worries.
the reason behind blanching is to help preserve the nutrients in it. It helps preserve the texture and the taste and the color of the vegetables. So that's the one reason. Some produce you can get, some vegetables you can get by without even blanching it, and that's where it requires a little bit of a more of a research on your part to do. Hey, I'm freezing something, doesn't need to be blanched. And then how long you blanch it for. So basically, the basic method of blanching is bringing your water up to a boil. You put the vegetables in it for about a minute, then you take it out of the water and you let it stay in the cold water. I think it's upward of a minute or until the vegetable cool down completely. And then you take it away from that cold water too. So that tightens whatever needs to be in it. All the nutrients and stuff stay intact with it. And then you transfer it, let it dry, the water to drip away, and then you can store it in a bag or something or a container. Cool. That's a reason just to like preserve the nutrients, the texture, and the color of the produce.
Got it. Very cool. Thank you.
Yep. Anything else, you guys?
I have a question and a resource. How do you feel about freeze-dried fruit?
Freeze-dried fruit. Okay, tell me more. I'm not familiar with that, to be honest.
I just found it at Costco and on their online, and it says that it like takes it at the peak of nutrition, and then it freeze dries it, and you reconstitute it when you eat it, or you can just add it, and it's a bit crunchy.
Okay,
But
sounds good.
I had
There were
for some
resources?
reason it's hard to get fresh fruit right now. I like it sliced. I know. But we've had this discussion before. I don't like to slice my fruit.
Right, I remember that, yes.
I-
And your resources from Costco, or do you have like
Yeah. Oh, the resource is Imperfect Produce.
okay.
I just reactivated my account right now, and it's wonderful for seasonal.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing that. I'll try to check it out or taste
Cool.
it myself.
If that's all on questions, I just want to say one more thank you so much, Urooj, for taking time out and teaching us about fresh produce and seasonal produce. For everyone watching this recording, if you'd like to see more of our health and wellness webinars, you can subscribe below. We have our previous webinars on the Margie Petersen Breast Center playlist. We are also on Instagram at MPBC Breasties for more updates from Providence St. John's Cancer Institute. And you can also follow us on Facebook and LinkedIn as well at St. John's Cancer Institute. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.